how do we bend reality? So there's 4 states of human living. 4 states of human living. And I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see the quadrants as I get into this. I'm trying to get more, the downside, I'm usually walking around and moving around a lot and drawing stuff on whiteboards. So I'm still learning how to use Zoom in that way. And I think I'm just going to incorporate a whiteboard, make this easier on everybody so that you can visually see what I'm talking about. But I'm going to share my screen and show you a quadrant that we're going to go through together. All right. Do we see this? Can I get some nods? Is it clear?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. Good. All right. So this is 4 states of human living. 4 states of human living. And we're going to go through the quadrants together. We're going to talk about this. Some of you, I've been talking about this a lot, so some of you are familiar with this. But this is huge, and this matters a lot in our business. And I see people in our business really, these 4 groups show up big time. Okay, so there, if you look at this quadrant here, we have two components. We have on the x-axis, we have happiness, right? Not happy, happy. And then on the y-axis, we have vision, no vision, vision. And we're going to explain why this is important. So if we start at the bottom here with the negative spiral, okay? The negative spiral. The negative spiral is somebody who is not happy now, right? They're not happy with where they're at, but they have no vision of the future. Okay. And if you've ever coached anybody in the business like this, these people are an insane. I don't spend a lot of time with them anymore. They're incredibly hard to reach, right? They're not happy with where they're at, but they don't have a clear vision of the life that they want. They're very hard to reach. And in that case, more often than not, the pain has to get great enough where they say enough is enough. And we're going to talk about how that happens in a second. But just understand the negative spiral, the death spiral. They're in a very negative feedback loop. This is somebody who hasn't learned to be happy and enjoy in this moment. So they're not enjoying where they're at, which is a choice, right? And they have no vision of the future. They don't know how they're going to get through it. They're just living day by day. Okay? This is a very low level of consciousness. If you could make the connection, this would be the same group as the group that life is happening to me, right? That's very common for the group this isn't a 1-for-1 on something else we were talking about, but I do want to connect the dots. This group is very much in the life is happening to me. I'm at the effects of life. I am a victim of circumstance. So I'm not happy with where I'm at. I have no vision of the future. I'm not owning my life. I'm not taking responsibility for anything, and I'm not happy with where I'm at. Somebody have a question?
Yeah, is this the 4 phases that we were referring to earlier, or
no? No, this is different. There is some. I appreciate the clarification. That's what I was saying. There is some layover here where you can kind of connect it, but it isn't a 1-for-1. So these 4 quadrants don't line up specifically with the 4 phases we talked about. In fact, really the first couple here are all really phase 1. Life is happening to me. Okay, but I love the question. But for sure, this first group, negative spiral, they don't have any vision. They don't have any happiness. So just back test this. Somebody doesn't have any happiness. They don't have any vision. They're in a negative spiral and they're trapped, right? They're stuck. That's why we're going to talk about lasting change. Second half of the day, we're going to go through the 7 master steps of creating lasting change, because this group needs this. Everybody needs this, but we got to kick them out of this.
What causes the trap?
What causes the trap? It's a negative feedback loop. I'm not happy. I don't have any vision. I don't have any vision. I'm not happy. I'm not happy. I don't have any vision. So so you get stuck in this negative feedback loop that everything's right here. Right? There's no vision. You can't see anything. Everything is right here, which means you're being very reactive and you're stuck. Okay. So it's very painful for people to be in this. And this is where you see a lot of coping strategies. You see a lot of addictive behavior, which is why just getting people to have vision changes their life. Vision and hope of a different future changes their life. Okay. So then number 1, not happy. No vision. Number 2 is the current reality trap. The current reality trap. And this is an interesting one. This is the group that is comfortable right now. Like if you ask them, they're happy right now. They're not doing anything that is wildly fulfilling. They're not, their job maybe is very, very, very basic, but it's paying the bills in a way in which they feel comfortable. So it's somebody that maybe is in a career trap where there is no roadmap for the future, or they're not even interested in a roadmap. They're doing work that is paying their bills, and they're just happy with where they're at. Right? No vision, but they're happy. No vision, but they're happy. This group is very tricky to coach because it's hard to compel this person to think about the future and grow into the future because they're happy with where they're at right now. Okay? So they're happy, but they don't have any vision. I'll explain the dynamic of that further as we get into this, but you have to understand this piece. So current reality trap, they're happy with where they're at, and that contentment is keeping them trapped. So that, again, this is somebody, an example, they're in a job where it's not super fulfilling, but maybe they're being overpaid for the work that they're doing, and they know it. And so they don't want to leave because they're happy with the money they're making, but there is no future in it. And one day that job's going to go away, or they get laid off, or whatever the case may be. But they're happy with where they're at, so they're not looking for change. This happens if somebody has a deep need for relationship, right? And you'll see some people will give up everything for relationship. And so they get into a relationship. They're very happy with what that relationship is doing for them right now. It's very fulfilling because it's meeting a deep human need, right? 6 human needs psychology, love and connection, maybe significance, but there's no future in it, and they know it. So they get stuck. Okay. That's the current reality trap. People get stuck here, and it's usually kensho or pain that kicks them out of this space, meaning there is a disruption in their life that makes them not so happy, not so certain, not so stable. Okay, so we go from the current reality trap very often, and we diagonally dive here, if you can see this, right? From the current reality trap down to stress and anxiety. By the way, this is where 80% of our entrepreneurs hang out until they figure this out. Okay, so they went from being happy to having their happiness taken away from them in many cases, right? The thing they thought that was supposed to solve all their problems suddenly isn't. And so they don't have any happiness, but magically vision shows up. Fuck, I don't want this to happen again. I don't want to live like this anymore. There's got to be a better way. How do I solve for this? How do I deal with this? Okay, so we're not happy anymore, but we have a vision for the future. 80% of the entrepreneurs that come into your business are coming in from that position. Most of the people that you're interviewing and hiring come in from that position, right? They're coming in with, I'm not happy with where my life is, and I'm looking for growth and opportunity. I have a vision for the way I want my life, and I'm looking for an opportunity to get there. Okay, so the first two groups are very hard to deal with, and we don't usually enjoy hiring them because there's not enough momentum yet to move them to change. The stress and anxious group is willing to change, and they now begin to develop a view of the future, right? They begin to get a vision, right? We're talking about 6 phases of meditation. This is manifestation. This is futurescape. This is looking into, I want a better life. I'm not happy with where I'm at now. I want a better life. That's a huge catalyst for a lot of people. That's kensho. It's pain. Pain is driving this. The problem with this is if that's your fuel of choice, you can get trapped here. And there is a lot of entrepreneurs who get trapped always being stressed out and anxious. They live there. Right? And here's the thing. If this becomes a pattern, right? A pattern of behavior, a pattern of thought, a pattern of language, a pattern of physiology. Let's try out a meeting here. Okay? If this becomes a pattern, you get stuck here in a way where stress and anxiety become the norm, and it really doesn't matter how much success you get, it's never enough. It's never enough. The vision is always extending out further.
Is
that
because you identify with that and you become one?
Yes, it's a pattern. It's a pattern of thinking. And this happens, going to tie information from yesterday, this happens very often because our goals were means goals to get us to something else. So even when we achieve it, right, means goals are just a means to get to some other goal. Even when we achieve it, it's not very fulfilling. It's fulfilling for half a moment, and then it's what's next. Okay, and it's okay to want to do what's next, and we'll talk about how that shows up in a healthy way in a second. But we get stuck here, and so we're in this stress and anxious state for long periods of time. Okay, and we have vision, and our vision continues to go out further, but we're always stressed out and anxious, and we're not happy with where we're at. Well, that has a major impact, especially for people in our business, because, and we talk a lot of this at the consultant promoting owner world, it's important that your life reflects a life that other people are going to want. And if you're stressed out and anxious all of the time, and this is certainly a conversation I typically would have at an ownership level, but principally it applies all the way down. Why would people follow you or emulate your life if you're always stressed out and anxious? Why would somebody want that? Right? You're never enjoying your life. You're not enjoying the fruits of your labor. So there's a balance here, right? And there's a season, know your season. But a lot of times we get stuck in a pattern here, and we're always living out stressed out and anxious. And I'm going to get away from sharing, and then I'll look at these. I can't really see the messages while I'm sharing screen here. I see some guys that are putting comments in. But we get stuck here. And so I'm going to explain the formula for getting out of this and how to be both happy now and have vision for the future. And I'm going to explain why this is important, right? When we go back to the fuel of choice, that we're talking about 3 forces of destiny. Okay. So that's a stressed out and anxious group. That's 80% of entrepreneurs, right? There is a science to achievement, right? There is a formula for achievement, but there is an art to fulfillment. And people who are getting stuck in the first 3 quadrants we're talking about here haven't figured out the art of fulfillment. Now, I would argue the guy who's stressed out and anxious has a better chance of popping than any of the other groups. But here's the other downside, and I see this happen a lot in on the entrepreneurial world. I certainly have seen it happen in our business. Somebody stays in the stressed out and anxious category for too long, and eventually, no matter how strong they are, they eventually crack. And they're like, fuck, I can't keep living this way. I'm constantly stressed out. It's killing my health. I'm tired of being financially fucked, right? I'm tired of the stress and the struggle. And they resign themselves back to the current reality trap. Somebody offers them a job they're making $10,000, $20,000 more dollars a year than they are now, right? Or maybe they're making a little bit more, or making the same, or maybe even making less, but there's way less stress. Okay, somebody breaks because they've been stressed out and anxious for too long. They're not enjoying the journey. They're not happy. They pop back to the current reality trap. And they take a job. You know what job stands for?
Just over broke.
Just over broke. Job. Just over broke. So they take a job that has way less stress and is just maybe paying the bills. Okay. And when you talk to them, and I've followed up with many guys in and out of our business that experience it, I always follow up, hey, how are you doing? Well, the first couple of months, it's, oh man, woo, doing great. I'm so happy. I feel good. Right. Well, let me explain why you feel good, because you're doing something that's different. Okay. So creating a different experience creates different endorphins. So that feels good. The stress is off your shoulders. The stress of having to perform, the stress of having to do something off your shoulders. That makes you feel good. Okay. So there's biochemical reactions that are happening that are backing up this desire for happiness, current reality trap. Literally just had somebody, I think they're on the call right now, who's back in the business now because they woke the fuck up very quickly in this current reality trap. So what happens is now you're in this current reality trap. You're going through the grind of a daily job. There's no hope of a future. You don't have any vision, and you're just working to pay the bills. And you go, fuck, yes, I'm happy, but I don't have any vision. Or I don't have a roadmap. There's no way to get out of this rat race. Right? I'm stuck. And so in this particular case, the guy texted me, goes, hey, I realized I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking the right way about this. I'd love to come back into business. And I said, what's changed? Because while I left, I went and got a job And I realized I was grinding and working hard here for the same or maybe a little bit more money, but there was no future in it. Right? And the thought came to me that if I'm gonna have to work hard and I'm gonna have to grind either way, I would rather work hard and grind for something that's gonna take me somewhere, right? Where I'm not stuck in this for the rest of my life. It isn't a trap where I'm just a rat in a wheel. Brilliant. That's an aha moment. I would say that's a Satori moment, a moment of enlightenment, where there was an aha moment of realization, shit, I'm gonna have to work either way. Maybe I want to work at something that has a long-term viability, long-term upside. Okay? So very often if somebody stays in the stressed out and anxious category for too long, they'll retreat back to something that's less stressful, makes them happy, but very often it doesn't have the vision component. Eventually the cycle continues because it's like, fuck. Right? And a lot of those guys are waking up to this right now is they don't have jobs. They were in the happy category, happy but no vision. Now they don't have a job. They're going to move back into the vision category. Okay, so where we want to spend our time is in the final quadrant. This is the bending reality quadrant. This is a person who's enjoying the process, right? They have ends goals. Their goals are ends goals, meaning they meet 3 criteria. They're either experience, growth, or contribution. And we'll talk about different ends goals in a little bit and how they meet up, but right, they're ends goals and they're beginning to enjoy the journey. They're staying present with where they're at and they're enjoying the blessing of where they are now, right? But they also have a vision of the life they're moving towards. So it's not I'm suffering now for a beautiful future. It's I'm enjoying the process with certainty of the outcome. I'm going to accept where I'm at. I'm going to enjoy the process, but I have a vision of the life I'm creating. This is the person who is literally creating their world. They're bending reality. They now begin to shape the world around them. And they're very hard to touch. They're very hard to distract. They're very hard to get off course. Why? They're enjoying the process. Their fuel of choice is bliss, happiness, and joy, which is a infinite energy source, right? It doesn't have a negative depletion on who you are. You're in joy in the process, okay? And you have a vision of the life you're creating. I heard a really powerful story and take on, again, I'm referencing biblical stuff. This Bible is one of my favorite books I know very well, but there's an example when Christ was being crucified and he was on the cross and they were nailing him to the cross. He had this moment with a Roman centurion soldier and he made eye contact with him, the dude that was hammering the nails into his hands. And it says this man, this exchange between Jesus and this man made the man drop his hammer and walk off. And one of the legends to this is he became Saint Germain, one of the great healers, if you follow that at all. But what's interesting about that is what it's implying is even in pain, even in suffering, Christ was finding a present moment to be in joy because he understood the ultimate outcome. Now, maybe that's going over some of your guys' heads, but it was an example that came to me immediately when I think about how do we take on joy in the process, right? Or maybe another example is when you have a child. The process of birthing a child, as I understand it, I didn't get to enjoy it in this lifetime, but as I understand it, is incredibly painful, right? And certainly my observations of it seems like it's very painful, okay? But there's joy in the pain, right? And an immediate relief when you see a mother hold her child for the first time. All the pain she just went through, now she's holding her child for the first time. It's like all of that pain goes away and I'm enjoying the process. I'm enjoying with the vision of the future. Hopefully those make sense. But that's where you want to hang out. Joy in the process, happiness in the process. That's sustainable with a vision of a better future.